ki jai, Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadip Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri ki jai, Gangamai ki jai, Jamunamai ki jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Welcome and welcome. Let's see. I have something selected to read, and let me just pull it up. My only question is whether I've read it before, but I don't think I have. Let me just double check. Krishna Krishna Hari Hari. Forgive me for being a little bit behind the curve. Let's see, the numbers I have are misnumbered. Okay. Let's get it the other way. Okay. This is 11th canto. Not Srila Prabhupada's writing, but that's okay. Putra Darapta Bandhu Nam. This is 1753. Putra Darapta Bandhu Nam Sangama Panta Sangama Anudehang Vyantyete Swapno Nidranugo Yata. The association of children, wife, relatives, and friends is just like the brief meeting of travelers. With each change of body, one is separated from all such associates, just as one loses the objects one possesses in a dream when the dream is over. Purport: Panta Sangama indicates the momentary association of travelers at hotels, restaurants, tourist spots, or in more traditional cultures, freshwater wells and walking paths. We are now associated with many relatives, friends, and well-wishers, but as soon as we change our material body, we will immediately be separated from all these associates. Just as upon awakening, we are immediately separated from the imaginary situation of a dream. One becomes attached to the sense gratification of one's dream, and similarly, under the spell of the illusory concepts of I and mine, we become attached to so-called relatives and friends who gratify our sense of false ego. Unfortunately, such fleeting egoistic association covers our real knowledge of the self and the supreme, and we remain hovering in material illusion, futilely endeavoring for permanent sense gratification. One who remains attached to the bodily concept of family and friends cannot possibly give up the false egoism of I and mine, or I am everything and everything is mine. All right. Itam parimrishan mukto griheshvatiti vad lasan nagrahir anubadhyeta nirmamo nirahang krita. Deeply considering the actual situation. A liberated soul should live at home just like a guest, without any sense of proprietorship or false ego. In this way, he will not be bound or entangled by domestic affairs. Karma bir griha medhi yair, ishtva mam eva bhaktiman, tishthed vanam vapo vishet, prajavan va paribrajet. A householder devotee who worships me by execution of his family duties may remain at home, go to a holy place, or if he has a responsible son, take sannyas. Purport: this verse describes the three alternatives for a householder. He may continue at home, or he may take Vanaprastha, or if he has a responsible son to take over his family duties, he may take sannyas, the renounced order, for a definitive solution to the problems of life. In all three ashrams, ultimate success depends on surrender, sincere surrender to the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the most important qualification one can have is Krishna consciousness. Yastva saktamatirge he putra vitaishana rahat strina kripanadir mudho mamahamiti bhadyate. But a householder whose mind is attached to his home and who is thus disturbed by ardent desires to enjoy his money and children, who's lusty after women, possessed of a miserly mentality, and who unintelligently thinks everything's mine, I am everything, is certainly bound in illusion. Then that illusion is described. Aho me pitarao vridho parya balat majat maja anatamam rute dina katam jivanti dukkitaha. Oh, my poor elderly parents, and my wife with a mere infant in her arms, and my other young children. Without me, they have absolutely no one to protect them and will suffer unbearably. How can my poor relatives possibly live without me? Evam grihashaya kshipta hridiyo mudhadhir ayam atripta stan anudhyayan mritodhantam mritondham vishatetamaha. Thus, because of his foolish mentality, a householder whose heart is overwhelmed by family attachment is never satisfied. Constantly meditating on his relatives, he dies and enters into the darkness of ignorance. Purport: Antam Vishate Tamaha indicates that in his next life, an attached householder will certainly be degraded because of his primitive mentality of bodily attachment, called murdha-dhi. In other words, after enjoying the sense gratification of considering oneself the center of everything, one enters into a lower species of life. Somehow or other, we must fix our minds on Lord Krishna and come out of the darkness of ignorance to our real life in Krishna consciousness. Okay. Om Jnana Timirantasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurn Miditam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Tatati Shapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavascha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deen Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamsana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Prishopanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vansha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Well, regarding that person in the waiting room, should we just admit them or should we wait for them to change to their real name?
I've tried admitting them, so they're trying to join. I don't know what the delay is right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there we've gotten a little picture of different, first of all, of attachments that people might have that would prevent them from making further progress. We also have, interestingly, that yes, one might remain at home. That's admitted here. It's perhaps the only place I've seen it, but there it is. And also it's indicated that if one has a son, one can take sannyas. Although, as we know, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, without having a son, took sannyas. So in any case, we're not going to look at sannyas here in this seminar. We're only looking as far as the Vanaprastha life. And we were, because I finished my outline really, because I've said the main things I wanted to say, we were looking for what you might have encountered in your reading, what realizations you might have, what things you might have done or be thinking about doing, either as a result of this seminar or from your own thoughts. And that's what we're especially inviting. I did have the stray thought, sort of leaving you a few moments to think more about that it just, and I don't know, perhaps I've expressed that here already, but if so, I'll express it again, that it's really astonishing to me. It's astonishing to me to see how attached some of our members are to their particular spot, to their service, the particular, post that they occupy, or the particular responsibility they hold, and whatever else might go with that. It's astonishing to me because I think when we joined, when we were young, we really expected that you chant Hare Krishna and you become detached. And the foolish karmis might be attached like Dhritarashtra to their whatever they're attached to till their last day. But devotees, we're transcendental. And then we tune in 30 years later, 40 years later, and we see that devotees who are good devotees, who are chanting, who are considered good devotees, or responsible devotees or leading devotees or advanced devotees are really stuck. They can't, don't want to give up whatever it is that they've got in ISKCON or in a a related organization, of which there are many. They've got a spot, and perhaps they have an income from that service, or perhaps not. Perhaps it's just the service itself. But now they're 60, they're 70, and they don't want to give up. They don't have in mind that by now I should be moving out and handing this service over. They have in mind that, well, it's still going, still doing, and others around them see that they're holding on, and sooner or later they won't be able to hold on anymore. It'll just be impossible. But it's astonishing to see that for me at least, that quite several are just unwilling, as in, what would I do if I weren't doing this? Or how would this go on if I weren't doing it? And this is not warranted, or let's say not becoming. We expect more of ourselves, really. We expect that we will put our future in Krishna's hands, that we will hand things over to younger people with confidence, that Krishna will do the needful. Yogakshema Mahamyam. He'll take care of me. But it's difficult. We find that the sense that I need to stay here longer is very strong. And therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, asanga shastrena drithena chitva, one has to cut oneself off from one's attachments with great determination. Okay. We still have 108 waiting out there in the waiting room. Shall we let them wait? What to do?
Well, 108 is one of our usual attendees, so I'm trying to admit them. Now, apparently they are admitted.
Yeah, I admitted them.
Okay.
I have some superpower I don't know about. Okay. And I wonder who might have some thoughts to contribute, either on what we've talked about or on what we haven't talked about. I wonder who would like to contribute something, or Kavalini. You need to unmute yourself.
I don't think people can unmute themselves at this point, so
Oh, I see.
I'll unmute them.
Okay, let me unmute you then. Okay.
Okay.
There you
It
are.
seems, as far as like staying in their post and all of that, to give devotees the benefit of the doubt, it seems like many may feel, wow, well, this is an obligation that I have and I don't want to abandon it. Kind of a responsibility, not like such an attachment, because generally service, especially management, it seems, is rather troublesome. I guess some people really like it, but most can attest that it's a bit troublesome, and they just feel obliged that this is what my service to Srila Prabhupada and to ISKCON, and I want to continue as long as I can. So it could also be that, but you're saying perhaps that even that is not, because then what? Then they're going to wander around and not have a solid service that they feel committed to,
Exact.
and
Mm.
plus by experience one gets better, as we see, like some places they change temple presidents a lot, and so one temple president has one quality that's not, people don't like, then they get a new one and he has different qualities they don't like, and and it seems like no one has all of them, all of the perfect qualities. But anyway, could it be like that, that one is just feeling obliged, although they really in their heart would like to give it up, give up that service, and would like to train a younger person perhaps?
I think you're right. I think that it's subtle. It's not, in the case of a devotee, I think particularly it may not be just, as we're reading, how will the world go on without me, and then so on. But it may be a subtle source of sense, but subtle
Mhm.
sort of attachment, thinking that, well, it is my service, and this is what Prabhupada gave me to do, and a sort of stay in there till the end. And I don't want to pass judgment, although I'm inclined to. But my sense is that this is a sort of subtle
Hmm.
trick of Maya, that Prabhu, you can't, you couldn't leave home because you're needed here. You couldn't give up being temple president or zonal secretary or GBC man or project head because uh, you have experience. You're the man. And my understanding would be, or my suggestion would be, that this is a sort of subtle attachment and a sort of subtle trick of Maya, that just stay where you are and hang in there. And we, and we overstay our time. We think, yeah, I'm not attached. I can give it up when I need to. But already you're 65, you're 70, you're 75, and really the time has passed for that.
Mhm.
That would be my sense. I was reading someplace some passing pages on management or something, or church leadership, that when someone can do something, I forget what it was, like 60% or 70% as well as you, now it's time to hand it over.
Mm.
If we wait for the person to be as good as we are, to have, as much, to be on top of things as much as we are, we may never hand anything over. But if we hand it over when a person is 60%, 70% as capable, they'll get the rest.
Mhm.
They'll get the rest. And yeah, that sense is there that if I weren't doing this, what would I do?
Mhm.
But that we should think about, well, what would I do? What could I do? What should I do? Let me move into a larger sphere. Household, typically attached householder life is what would you say, the epitome of that mentality. How could I leave my son or my daughter or my wife? They're depending on me. And one stays in a little world of 2 or 3 or 4 people and can't go beyond that. But the broad-minded person, like it was Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in Life Summary of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that he left behind the small world of home and family for the larger world of Krishna and all humanity. So that's the broader thinking, that I have to give up the smaller world for the bigger world. And Krishna does have more for me to do, but I have to see that. those are some thoughts from my side anyway. I'm, again, not claiming any absolute authority here, and especially not saying as to a particular case, this person's this or that person's that. But at least these are some thoughts on these matters. And again, who else would like to contribute something? And thank you for really good
Vamshidhar
thoughts.
Gopal has his hand raised.
Okay. Vamshidhari Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
So Maharaj, like I have several questions, so I would start with first. Let's see if we have time. So continuing the current discussion, so you said that we should not be attached to our service. So during Vanaprastha, let's say if we are doing some service and we are not attached, we want to pass it on. So should we just take another service, or should we just then completely confine ourselves to personal sadhana and detach ourselves even from the service or any devotional service which are doing, or we just involve ourselves more in menial service rather than any post or uh, any such high service?
Thank you. Hold on one second. I think it will depend upon one's situation. There may be those who well, let me think. Should we look for another service, or should we just be doing sadhana? It will really depend on one's own situation. I would think that in the mature stage, one would not be looking for another managerial post or another spot in the bureaucratic setup of things, but that one would be looking either for preaching or for sadhana, for going to a place like Vrindavan or Mayapur. That would be appropriate, or some preaching engagement. That would be my thought. And there may be those who, they couldn't do any preaching engagement. All their body allows them to do is bhajan or some simple temple service, and that's quite all right also.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj. So Maharaj, my another question was not directly related, but is that how we understand the difference between being miser and versus like spending as per our need, because sometimes there may be a very thin line between the two. So
between being a miser and spending only for what one needs?
Yeah, right.
Well, in our line, and I think you've picked it up well and highlighted it well in your seminar, we're advised to be sort of miserly toward ourselves financially.
Right.
Not to spend on ourselves and say, well, I don't want to be miserly, so why not the why not the Lexus? Why not the deluxe flat? Why not? I don't want to be a miser here, sitting on my money. Better to spend it for a good purpose. And so, the fancy car, the expensive flat, the money that we get is not really our money; it's Krishna's money.
Right.
And better to use it for the welfare of others. If we've been able to save, if we attended your seminar, we know, we learned how to turn $200 into $2,000, how to have our money appreciate over time with compound interest and so on, and we have money, well, then we can spend it for Krishna, for some good purpose. Not that, well, now I'm meant to live, now that I've saved, I can afford to live more comfortably, I can live more, we shouldn't, in the way, with a Western background, we may not be ready for living in the forest and living with extreme austerity, but with reasonable austerity and not spending needlessly for sense gratification, but spending for Krishna's service.
Right. Okay, it's very clear. Thank you. And I have another question. Like, can somebody take Vanaprastha before even 50? If Grahastha ashram is not conducive for doing spiritual practice.
Yeah, I think certainly one can. We've seen, I mean, practically like Apurva and Kamalini, they've been Vanaprasthas since, I don't know, maybe hardly since their last child was born. Practically, you know, they're dedicated to preaching. They're not attached to home. They're not attached to, they're engaged in preaching work. And we see others also, devotees who essentially take an early retirement from material life and given more attention to bhajan or to prachar. And yes, one doesn't have to wait. 50 is like, okay, you're 50, you have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can end it up earlier, great, really great. Why no, we have to wait till we're 50. No, if you're already detached and you're enthusiastic, then earlier, great.
So, like, then this confusion comes to mind that am I running away from, my Grahastha life, or I am really want to do something for Krishna, because that doubt is always there in the mind. So,
well, again, we're talking about Vanaprastha life, aren't we? And that's the beauty of the topic, that we don't have to look at an extreme step and say, well, is this really justified, or is it just my whim? But when we're talking about the Vanaprastha ashram, it's not really so drastic. If my wife and I travel to holy places, or if I sometimes travel out and come back, or if we loosen up our association, as I have suggested earlier, separate rooms, or even living down the street, limiting our, sort of tapering off our association. Well, that's not such a, extreme move that, this couldn't be right. These things are doable, and they're not irresponsible at all. They're just a recognition that this is where our life is going. And if we're able to do it earlier, well, good, because death might come earlier also. We don't know. So we want to be, as they say, ahead of the curve, or even what was it? There was one sannyasi. Well, no, he was a grahastha, and his wife became pregnant, but not by him. And so he was thinking of just giving up his family life. And his grahastha friends advised him that, you should be forgiving, you should be, carrying on. I forget whether he had any children at that point, maybe he did. But, you should be forgiving, and you should. But he was still thinking that he should take sannyas, and he asked Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, at the first excuse. At the first excuse. I encouraged him. And that's sannyas. That's not even Vanaprastha life. Something else?
No, that's it, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Tulsi Priya has her hands, Randy.
Yes.
Hi, Krishna Maharaj. Thank you very much. I was just remembering, what you were saying about the at the first excuse. It seems like Krishna often gives opportunities for doing these things. And even if we maybe feel unable to do it, but if we have the intention or the desire or the willingness to do it, then Krishna will make the arrangement. I was just remembering a friend of mine. I might have mentioned this before, but my memory isn't what it used to be. He was a married man. He had a couple of kids, and he would do a lot of service for the temple, for the devotees. You know, very generous person. He was running a business, and then he made some mistakes in judgment, and now he's in prison. And he used to always say, oh, when I get this taken care of, you know, with my kids and my family life, then I'm going to preach full time. And he would always say that. He was like, he understood that his family life was kind of like holding him back because his wife wasn't so into Krishna consciousness and his kids weren't so into it. But when he, you know, at one point Krishna, so he's preaching all the time in prison now, which is not the ideal. But I can't help but think that if maybe he detached himself sooner, he wouldn't have found himself in that situation, because he was trying so hard to arrange things that he made those judgmental errors and got himself into trouble. And then, you know, things like like you've mentioned, divorce or death or illness or, you know, politics, you know, for people who are in management. We've seen people who, you know, have positions in managements, and then one day they're in and another day they're out. And it just seems like Krishna makes arrangements for us. And if we at least are willing to be detached, then when those excuses come, then we're, you know, it's like, okay, here's the excuse, you take it. Seems like that
Yeah.
man, his wife was the excuse. His wife getting pregnant from somebody else was the perfect excuse.
Yeah. Vidura is an example. He was insulted by Duryodhana so viciously, and he just took it. All right, Krishna, you've handed me one. So he left home and went traveling and met Maitreya and became a great sage. So that happened. King Anga got a son like Vena, and he couldn't do anything to reform him. And so just one night he got up in the middle of the night and left the kingdom, just disappeared. So he took advantage of that situation. A bad son, insults from the family, their financial collapse. There are different things that could go wrong, really, in material life. And what would you say, a person who, as you said, is like looking forward to getting free, can just see it as Krishna's mercy. All right, my business collapsed. I might as well leave home. My wife's playing around with someone else. All right, might as well leave home. I got my business is laying me off with the golden handshake. All right, I might as well leave home. Whatever it is, if there's an opportunity, or disaster even, the devotee can turn it into an occasion for making further progress. Or, as you say, temple politics. So, you know, I'm getting, instead of like fighting tooth and nail for the post, a devotee may think, okay, good. You know, this is my chance to get free from this false identity, from this false, what would you say? Just to move to a different stage of engagement, see what else Krishna has in mind for me. That may be there. Not whimsically, leaving something that really he should do, but thoughtfully, responsibly, consulting other Vaishnavas, or consulting the spiritual master, considering the matter deeply. One may say, all right, this is the best thing here is to move on and do something new.
If I could follow up with that, I feel like sometimes when you have a little, they say a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. And when Krishna, if you have some knowledge and you know better, I feel like sometimes Krishna deals with you differently than somebody who is innocently in ignorance about what should be done. It seems like the more I hear these things, the more I feel like I have to adjust my mind to accept the inevitable. And I'm also a little on the superstitious side. I think if I don't adjust my mind and accept the inevitable and make steps towards that, then I will be forced. Krishna will deal with me in such a way, because I know better. He will deal with me in such a way that I will be forced to make that adjustment. And I don't want to be forced. I would rather do it willingly.
Yeah.
And
why go kicking and screaming when we could go voluntarily and glorious? Yes. Thank you. And welcome to Jaguar Sundar and Komodaki.
woo, Haribol.
They're officially, they've been really Vanaprasthas for a long time, but they've become officially Vanaprasthas, and they're very much engaged in devotional service in their Vanaprastha life. And I think they're locked down in Mayapur right now with, the pandemic going on. So that's a nice arrangement by Krishna. And I'm happy to see you here. I think this is the first time. The time zones don't make it easy. But if you feel that you'd like to share something about your experience in the Vanaprastha ashram and how you've moved that into that status and what your experience is, then we'd be grateful to hear from you. I know I'm asking you on the spot in part because I don't know when we'll get the opportunity again to have you here, given the time difference. It's 5 a.m. over there in Mayapur. And you're not on the, I'm not just sitting here waiting for you to speak, but if you'd like to, feel free to unmute yourself or to raise your hand in some other way, indicate your awareness. Yeah, we can hear you there. Well, okay. Maybe we'll carry on, and again, if you'd like to jump in, feel free. And by the way, if anyone would like to, we're a small enough group that videos are welcome. If you'd like to run your video, that's fine. Then we get to, everything becomes a little more personal. And are there others who'd like to express some thoughts, some questions, some realizations, some experience that would be of interest? Tulsi Priya.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Tulsi.
I just wanted to share a brief story. It's not so much to do with Vanaprastha, but it's about the self-awareness that comes with somebody who's detached. And Maharaj, you might have heard this story from the horse's mouth, but I'm not going to mention his name. But he's a brahmachari, and he's been one for a little while. And this story was told to me years ago, and he said that there was a youngish woman, who wanted to get married, and authorities thought maybe he should associate with her. So he agreed, and they were associating for a while, and it didn't work out. And he told me, he says, as a result of associating, and he's pretty staunch, he's a detached person. He says, but as a result of associating with her, I realized that I didn't really want to be married. What I wanted was a girlfriend in Krishna consciousness. And it always struck me that that was beautiful self-awareness, you know, that he was able to save himself some pain and save the girl some pain by not getting married, because he had some detachment, and, you know, he went along with what the authorities wanted for a minute until he realized, no, this is not really what I want. And I just thought, you know, if we cultivate that attachment, if nothing else, we get some self-awareness. And I just always, that always stuck with me, and I really appreciated his insight.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if it's the same brahmachari, but I know of one in a similar circumstance. The temple president sort of set him up, and you know, thinking that, well, this is sort of the inevitable path that everyone treads, and it just wasn't meant to be, because the man is constitutionally not meant for that kind of stuff. You know, he's really a brahmachari at heart, and so it quickly became apparent, and probably became apparent to the girl also, you know, that this fellow was really
I
not
think
gung
self-awareness
ho.
of any kind, not just about being a brahmachari or not. You know, when you cultivate detachment, it gives you general self-awareness.
Yeah, it's not just I have to be in this ashram, you know, we're meant to be, but that sense of who I am and what I'm meant for, and all of that. Sure, to be thoughtful, dhira, to be thoughtful, to be yes, to be thoughtful. We're meant to be thoughtful. And if we're thoughtful, and if we're what's the word, intent on serving Krishna, then I think you brought this up before, that we all know this. Krishna helps us. If Prabhupada said, you take one step toward Krishna, Krishna takes 10 steps toward you. Prabhupada in his own life, he was always thinking about the order of his Guru Maharaj, always thinking about the order of his Guru Maharaj. And so Krishna made the arrangement, which was difficult for him, he said. You know, it wasn't a piece of cake to leave his family. Oh, this is horrible. But Krishna made the arrangement, and even, he said, forced me. So that's Krishna's kindness. If we're if we're thinking how to serve Krishna, how to get free of material attachments and so on, then Krishna may make the arrangement. And if we're not, then even if Krishna makes the arrangement, we won't take it. You know, it's like your alarm clock rings just at the right time, and you think, nah, let me go. You know, and 2 hours later, oh man, what did I do? So, being ready for the opportunities, being ready to see Krishna's mercy in action. That's, as you said, insight. Whereas the person who's dull, even when the opportunity is handed to him, he thinks, no, I need to do this, I need to do that. They need me for this, they need me for that. What would I do if? And they can't take it. So that cultivation of sadhana, of reading the philosophy, just reading the books is such an advantage, because it'll be in our head. This is what I'm meant for. Krishna, you know, we'll have the philosophy like bouncing around in our head, informing us of you know, road mapping us, as it were, and we'll see, yes, this is Krishna. And if we're not reading the books, if we're not in touch, not hearing, then it's harder. You know, something happens and we're bewildered. What's going on here? So a devotee is in a sort of a happy situation that Krishna can work with him. He's malleable. Thank you. Something else?
Maharaj, what you're saying now reminds me of how you opened the talk, and one of your concerns was how you were perplexed at how many of your God siblings, although starting Krishna consciousness in a very renounced and enthusiastic way, somehow later on were not able to, or have not yet been able to, become detached to the degree that you might have expected. And I think the key is what you're saying right now, is that to the degree that you're able to absorb yourself in in this literature, and it just becomes obvious what your path in life ought to be. And I was thinking that perhaps someday we'd be able to hear from your good self, not that you've actually been through Vanaprastha ashram, but you've been able to remain in your sannyas position all this time, whereas not many have. And the other thing I was thinking as you were opening tonight's talk was that there was something that Prabhupada said once, that don't be surprised who leaves, but be surprised who stays. And with that in mind, I'm thinking it's not so astonishing that people become detached, but it is astonishing when people become detached. And
I was just thinking.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was also I'm reading Lifetime in Preparation again now, and also you're speaking about Prabhupada's own example, and I'm reading now how just after leaving family life, he's just at the end now, and he's starting to write Back to Godhead magazine. And that reminded me of what I read in this one verse in the Bhagavatam, where this is the third canto in the 32nd chapter, where Prabhupada is discussing what the engagements are for the different varnas. And he says that there are 4 orders of the social system. And for the grihastas, performance of sacrifices, distribution of charity, and action according to prescribed duties are especially recommended. Similarly, austerity, study of Vedic literature, and philosophical research are meant for the Vanaprasthas, or retired persons. And that made
Austerity.
me, yeah.
And what was the second one?
For the grihastas is performance of sacrifices, distribution of charity, and action according to prescribed duties. And then for the Vanaprasthas, austerity, study of Vedic literature, and philosophical research.
Great. Austerity, study of the Vedas, and philosophical research. Very good.
Yeah, in other words, you've lived your life according to a certain paradigm for so long. Now it's time for you to really get into it, really do the research and give back to the upcoming generations.
Yeah. Thank you. We only have a couple of minutes more. While you were speaking, it occurred to me, that I've turned the spotlight on attached godbrothers and so on. But even as a sannyasi, I have my own attachments, and that astonishes me too. How in spite of so many years, in spite of sannyas, in spite of this and that, so many attachments are there, and therefore how serious we have to be to focus on Krishna consciousness, to free ourselves from distraction and unwanted things. So it's not just that I get to sit in the privileged seat of being the person who's achieved perfection, but I have so many attachments also. There's so much to get rid of, and so much to, on the one side we want to get rid of unwanted things, and on the other side how much we want to become attached to Krishna, how much eagerness, how much taste, how much longing or enthusiasm we want to have for serving Krishna. Do we want to sort of just plod along to the end of our days? Of course, we want to be dutiful, we want to serve, but finally our business is to become mad after Krishna. And so are we there? And if we're not, then why not? What is it that's standing in our way? So that insight that Tulsi Priya was talking about is something that we all need. We all need to look within our hearts and hear sometimes from others also, and ask, what do I need to do to go further? And with that, I think we shall stop. That gives us a couple of minutes to shift over to Tuako's evening program. And yes, so we will stop here. And I won't say more. There's questions and so on, but we're out of time. So save that for next time. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Prabhupada.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Hare
Jai.
Krishna.
Jai.
Hare Bo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Thank you, Dukhatri Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bo. Hare Bo.
Hare Bo.
Jai, Hare Krishna, thank you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Tawana.
Hare Krishna.